Hey, welcome to the Reloved Guitars workshop. This is Sam, I'm your host, and having just done a bit of tidying up around this place, and also, you may have noticed, I've just turned the camera onto medium wide angle. So it's looking a little bit different today, and we've got Mr. Morris there waiting for some action, and he's excited about what's coming up on the bench today because, Velcro, is your friend or your enemy. Yeah, he's excited because coming up, I'm just going to get these batteries out of the way, coming up on the bench today, sorry Morris, is a really interesting guitar. So I'm going to introduce it to you in a moment, but first of all I just want to do really is I'm just trying out, what am I doing? I'm just going to make a load of banging and clanking noises. Just trying out this setup. I've got, as you can tell, I've got my little microphone thingy. Let's get that light out of the way. Pardon me. I've got myself that kind of microphone, wireless thing, and I've also put the camera to sort of mid, not wide, not narrow, what's the middle angle thing. So should look different. I'm looking to see how that affects the lighting. So anyway, we'll take it on from there. But it's quite a neat little setup, although at the moment it's just slightly in the way of a few things. So I'm just trying to see where I can put it. That feels about right. We'll see what that looks like. Now you can probably see in the background the reason for this video. So welcome to Reloved Guitars workshop, and here we have a really interesting creature, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is a Chibson. Never had my hands on one before, and this is a genuine, honest to goodness fake Chibson, meaning it's a deliberate copy of a Gibson with, you can probably see quite clearly there, stamped in serial number and proudly stamped made in the USA. Right. And it claims itself to be a Les Paul standard with very, very thin little Les Paul logo, you can tell. But at first glance, that's quite a pretty little beast. It's got the right weight, it looks nice, it's got the right colour. Feels nice in lots of kind of ways, and there are some things that I already know about it, which is these bridge saddles here are razor sharp, and so are some of the edges of the frets as well. So this is a first for me, taking apart one of these, and Jay, who owns it, has asked me to do whatever I can to make it play better, and so we'll get on and do that. Some things come off straight away. Could be fixed with a little bit of super glue. Probably the quickest way of doing it, actually. But there are a number of considerations on a guitar like this. I mean, first of all, it's made with cheap Chinese parts, so that everything, while it looks the business, you can guarantee that all the wiring is probably substandard or just average. And also, the pickups are likely to be very, very poor quality. So in a way, you've got a nice frame which could be made to play, I don't doubt that it could be made to play very nicely, nice playing action, nice level frets, we can take care of that. But then in a way you're still left with what's probably a very cheap, not very nice sounding set of pickups. But on the basis that anything we do is going to improve it, I'm going to really enjoy getting stuck into this. I think the first thing I'd like to do, which I think I can do because I've got batteries in this amp down here, is just to really hear what it sounds like. If I'm going to throw another drill bit away, thankfully that wasn't an Allen key, because the last Allen key I chucked away, and had to spend a few hours on a hunt for an Allen key, having lost it. But so yeah, so Jay is a singer in the band I joined recently, and so this is a kind of attempt to improve his basic Chibson, which is, as I say, it's a funny thing to kind of look at these, because I don't approve of them in the sense, you know, I know everyone gets cagey about it. I mean, I don't have a particular view either way. It is illegal to counterfeit things. You know, Gibson have, for economic reasons, obviously, commercial reasons, have a copyright, or some copyright over their intellectual property, their design and their guitar. And to be honest, anyone who kind of ignores that and then goes out and produces something that intends to be or tries to be a direct copy is clearly infringing some parts or some of that copyright, some if not all of that copyright. So, you know, in principle I think it's not a great thing. But since, you know, from the point of view that I didn't buy this, and I've just come by it as somebody who's going to have a look at it and see if it can play any better than it does, it's very interesting, because it's just a guitar. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hear it and see if anything just jumps out that's obviously wrong. Puff. Well, straight away, unless that's a new lighting hum. No, I think that's a grounding issue of some sort. Anyway, let's see if I can tune it. Ooh, very unresponsive tuners. Well, first of all, they play. Yeah, well, they play. Don't know if there's anything nice about them particularly, but well, I'm not going to play anymore or mess about anymore, but that straight away I can hear that they're very low output, which we can have a measure a bit later on with the multimeter thing, but they also don't have any, just straight away they don't have any particularly, what's the word, redeeming characteristics sound wise. I mean, it's not a real very good test, but it's alright just a quick sort of just quickly ascertain A, they're working, and B, that they're not thrilling sounding. I mean, this neck one is way down in the housing, so that's obviously going to probably affect its output. Just looking at them, they stick out quite a long way. The screw heads on the poles are quite far out. But anyway, I'm going to treat this thing with the contempt it deserves. No, with the I'm going to treat it with kind of respect and give it as good a going over as I can. I want to obviously this cost Jay around about 60 quid, I think. So it's a nice looking lump for that, and I'd be quite pleased to have that as a start point to do something else with it. But obviously, having cost relatively little, I know that I doubt Jay's going to be wanting to spend a fortune on it. So I'm going to just be careful and see see how much I can improve it. Excuse me, in the cheapest, sorry this sounds terrible, in the least expensive way. Well, the first thing is off comes these, no actually before they come off I'm just going to take a quick sighting on the height of the, I was going to say the height of the strings, but I happen to have misplaced indoors. I've left my measuring thing. I could probably do it with a little ruler, but no, in fact I can't because it doesn't. Yes, that one does. Rattle, rattle. Not ideal, but it'll give me a sort of rough idea. Okay, so we're on the bass side. We're at about 2 millimeters on the 22nd, and on the treble side it's about the same, fairly even across. So 2 millimeters is not bad playing action actually, but what we don't know, of course, is how well the notes and this is really filthy. Jay doesn't play this in our band. I'd make 3 guitarists if he did. But just in just looking and feeling, it's got quite a flat radius, as probably a 12 like all Les Paul copies. As I said, the fret ends are a little bit sharp. They're not badly done actually, but they're a little bit sharp on the edges. Everything about it's a little bit sharp, so it could use a bit of gentle sanding off, rounding off the corners. There are some, the frets seem a little high or raised a little bit in certain places, but obviously I don't think there's anything actually hanging out. And then on top of that, the condition of the frets is pretty dirty, so they're old and they don't have much of a shine to it, and some of them have a few little nicks and that. And sometimes you can tell that this is the kind of scratchiness of this can often be through just not being played. You know, they build up a sort of layer of gunk which slows your strings down when you're bending them, and it feels pretty awful. So we're going to probably take care of all of that. And then right down at this end, the nut end, we've got, see if my little device works. Down here we've got a playing action, a nut action. If I, hopefully, I've just retidied my toolbox up, so with a bit of luck everything's where it should be. So a quick check on this. I think this is probably about 7.75 of a millimetre. So I'm going to choose that just to start off with and have a guess. A quick stab at it. Yeah, almost exactly, but I think it would be 0.6. Let's try 0.65. Anyway, for me that's about 0.32 high. Yeah, it's about 0.6, and again that's about twice as high as I'd like it. Anyway, that's all I kind of want to know at the moment. So I'm going to take all these strings off. The nut is a bit plasticky, and it probably could do with, well, we can make sure the slots are okay when we come to lowering them a little bit. If this was my guitar and it was no expense spared, I would certainly replace that nut with a tusk nut or something like that. At least it looks white, where everything else has got the kind of sharp strings, attempted vintage look and feel. This is a plastic, very plasticky nut, and in very white plastic. But we shall see. I think there are times, and Jay will end up watching this, but there are times when, or all times actually, it's good to think about every guitar that you do, or every piece of work you do, if in whatever kind of business you're in. Any kind of work you do is the last piece of work, if you like. Think about it as a sort of walking advert for what you do. So for me, I know Jay is very active excuse me, in the music business down here in Cornwall in the southwest of the UK, so it makes a lot of sense to make sure this is as good as it can be because Jay will no doubt let other people get their hands on it, and it'll cause, or will, it causes quite a stir, quite rightly, if you have a 60 quid guitar that plays and feels like as good as the original. So I'm just trying to get this thing to work as well as everything else. Yay! As I say, I don't know what this wide angle shot looks like at the moment, or how it works, but we'll see. So I'm doing what I normally do, which is just taking off pretty much all the major components, so I can clean everything up, and also just discover if there are any problems along the way. It's a good way of just revealing issues that you can take care of. So just taking off the thingy guard, we'll take that off because we know it comes off already, and I'm going to use my two-handed technique to remove the, what do you call them, the knobs, speed dials or something, and I think just check that these are on tight. That's okay, they are. They've also got a bit of extra tape wrapped around, like I often do, a bit of masking tape to make sure that the knobs stay on. So I'd like to, at some point I'm going to have a look in here and check the output of these things. In terms of the tuners, I don't want to take those off, there's no reason to. There's nothing about them that needs cleaning or checking out. They all appear to function, and everything at this end of the guitar appears to be okay. What I will do is take the truss rod cover off, because one of the things I'm going to do is, before I go into any fret work, I'm going to obviously make sure, oh, that was good. Ooh, interesting. Wow. That came off straight away, so that second screw is just cosmetic. The first, there's nothing actually for it to bite on, which is kind of weird. Oh, ooh, ooh. What am I seeing in here? I feel like that Dave's World of Fun guy, Dave, obviously, from Dave's World of Fun stuff. He has a particular way of speaking, it makes me laugh, but I'm just looking in here, and oh, for a minute what looked like a split right the way through the headstock, but it's not. What it is, it was a line showing a black finish through. Thank goodness for that. It shined as well, because underneath was paint, and it made me think that had gone right the way through the guitar, but of course I couldn't see anything. So what we have in here, blimey, oh Lord, buried down in here. Oh, it's an Allen key, that's okay. Allen key, but it's well recessed, but it is there, so we should be able to make a neck adjustment. Yeah, as I said right at the beginning, we've got fairly crap standard pickups, which I do have some alternatives. I've got a Wilkinson neck pickup here. I've got one in gold, which isn't much help, and I've got a Ace Pro, and I don't know whether that's a bridge or a neck pickup, but I'm just going to hold them. The only problem with replacing with a name brand like Wilkinson, from Jay's perspective, is that, you know, if you've since you've got a thing that's pretending to be a Les Paul, then obviously the Les Paul doesn't have branded Gibson pickups, or I don't think it has I've never seen Gibson written on them, so you would be expecting an unnamed pickup. It may be that we can remove the Wilkinson brand off here and that will do the same job. These two pickups are broadly similar, One's a bit newer than the other, and they're about the same size. Depends on whether they're materially better than these, but as I say, I have some which I could replace with, so it'd be just interesting. What I'm going to do is just have a quick look down the frets here, and there is quite a bit of space under some of them. You definitely get your pullers under there if you wanted to, but generally speaking, they're not too bad, although there are some ends here I can press in and see them move a little bit, which is what contributes to the sharpness. You get things caught, fingernails and whatever caught under there. So definitely not the best job in the world, but on the basis that these will be pretty much bedded in, the last thing you want to do is mess with them so that they come out in any way, shape or form. So what I'm going to do is just take the back covers off and drop all the bits into the pot, and it's really kind of a mixture of extreme nosiness, but also checking out, because what I suspected when we tried it through the amp is that there's it sounds like there's an earth problem, which makes a bit of a nasty noise the whole time that you'd be playing it. Now this is interesting. That doesn't want to come off. Okay, I'll do this in some way without catching the paintwork around the edges, but there'll be loads of little finishing problems like this all the way through. Come on. I can feel it pulling up, but it's sort of... There you go. It's got loads of little shimmy bits in there to... kind of like a washer effect, I suppose. And you can probably see that. Right, I'll just take this off and see what we've got under the world of the electrics down here. Been a really interesting time in the Reloved Guitars workshop over the last few weeks, really. As you may have seen, I've spent quite a bit of time recently working on... Good, there's a stuck, I don't want them to move. Fair bit of time working on Jay, another Jay. I called him Joe, but friends call him Jay. And Jay in London's Fender Music Master, and refretting that. So just having come through that, I'm now on to a few other guitars, but also another one for Jay, same Jay, Fender Music Master Jay, and I've got acoustic to do as well this week. So, but on a lighter note, we have small pots here. It doesn't look too bad, but it's nothing extraordinary, but it's competent, basic setup in there. Just kind of interested at trying to find out at somewhere along the line why the earth doesn't feel right. So I'm going to, not right now, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to spend some time poking my way through all of this to see if there's something awry. There's usually, I may only find it if I take these out, but there's usually there'll be a wire, an earth wire from one of these corner posts going into the top of one of these pots. In fact, that's probably it there, but I don't know how well seated it is on the thing, post, socket, whatever, mounting post. But anyway, I'll come to that a bit later on. So this is, as I say, a bit of an experiment in terms of the wide, narrow angle, which I need to figure out before I go too far down the line. If it's really crap visually, then obviously I'm going to want to stop. But first, just a quick first check, a visual. I'm just going to have a quick look down the neck, see what we've got in terms of relief in this neck. And visually, oh blimey, that last fret doesn't look very good. visually this neck looks just about straight in in strings off position, but what I can see from here is some of the frets are a bit crappy, and in particular this last one here. God, it's not just crappy, I can feel it. It goes up and down, so this has been hammered in really poorly. Yeah, it's a real shame that this is such a kind of ham-fisted job. Again, from our perspective, so long as these are relatively safely, glued in and they're not actually bouncing out and going anywhere, we can put this right by doing the fret leveling process. Oh God, this one's uneven as well. It can be a little bit. I mean, it's okay in a sense. It's the last one, so it's not going to cause any problems. But we can level it out by taking stuff away from the top, because these have never been done before. It's a relatively new Chibson copy. So, blessing is that we've got loads of material to work to. But starting off with the fact that the neck's relatively straight, a very quick check on the evenness of the frets will give us an idea of just the scale of unevenness in this neck. So far, that's not massive, but there's a fair few. Oh, there are some then which are quite severe. You can hear the scale of the knocking. That's quite a pronounced high spot. And often you'll find, if you see it visually, you might see the ends lifting, if that's really a really big rocking one. Ooh. So again, that appears to be rocking at this end, so I would expect to see this probably free from rising up a little bit. Yeah. Ooh, another one. So really, well, I mean, when they are uneven on this Chinese copy, they are quite significantly uneven, and that's the real problem. I mean, you get a lot of guitars. First of all guitars will have uneven frets, but some of them you might have 30 to 40% of uneven frets, but actually the amount or the degree of unevenness is minor, and you just hear a little tiny clicking. These are substantial, so they are considerable differences in height, and the result of that, of course, is that you will get. Oh, I mean, that's just at this point in the neck where you play loads of lead. That's kind of going to totally. It'll mess up the action. It'll totally restrict the action you can set on the guitar. Now, there's a whole thing about how high or low people have their action anyway, and there's no kind of hard and fast rule. It's clearly a mixture of kind of common sense and personal preference, but some people would say that the action on your guitar should be as high as you can keep it whilst being playable, which is kind of totally logical. In a sense, the higher the action is, the less likely the string's ever going to hit ground out on a fret, and it's also going to mean kind of the better the note usually. But on the other hand, who wants to play a really uncomfortable high action up here? So it's a kind of mixture of you want a clean sounding notes, so that each note will sound out properly, and you want it low enough to be comfortable to play it, so you don't feel exhausted by the time you've played a song or two. And with a guitar like this, the only way we're going to cure the unevenness is to level the frets, and in doing so, what it will do is a couple of things. It will clean up all these filthy frets, and we'll return it to a really nice polish, which will feel good. Pardon me. And we'll also then have the ability to go down a bit lower in action, which will make it just that bit easier to play. And when coupled with setting these nut slots down here at the right depth, or a better depth for ease of play and to avoid any intonation problems at this end. A combination of those things doesn't have to be very drastic, but it will make the guitar feel a hell of a lot better to play. The question would be is, can I do anything for J without doing the fret level? And I guess it comes back to the whole thing about reloved guitars, and that is, I've said from the beginning that when it comes to doing a setup, given that 100% of guitars have uneven frets so far, I've never found one that doesn't, given that all guitars have uneven frets, then, and given that uneven frets compromise your ability to choose the lowness of the action, then for me at Reloved Guitars it's always been about doing the full fret job on it, unless where to do so you run out of material, like a really ancient guitar which has just got enough fret material left to play, but if you tried to file or level the frets you'd run out. In that case you are pretty close to needing a refret anyway, which of course in Reloved Guitars we are. It's a bit messy over here. Here in Reloved Guitars we are now fully equipped to do. Sorry, covered up, and now amazing workbench. But yeah, there's the fret press, or the press arbor, or arbor press, or whatever they call it. Strange names, American sounding names. But that gives us a really easy refretting capability. You can do it with hammers, you can do it with a drill press if you really need to, or even with some special plier-y things, but the arbor press is the best thing. It puts the right pressure on it. Okay, so looking at this for Jay, if he wants an improved guitar, what I can see is it needs the frets doing. There's no two ways about it. It needs, ideally, it needs a new nut, which I probably have actually. Well, I've got a couple of different things. I've got one here in a tusk material, which is probably even already better condition than the one he's got, and it's actually a cream colour, so we could work with that. Or I have a couple of other cream ones which are also plastic, but they are better colour straight off. So we'll definitely go with one or two of those. Well, one or other I meant. I'm not going to use two nuts. One or other of those. So it needs that, it needs the frets doing, which is easy for us, and beyond that it needs to decide whether we change out the pickups for something better, or whether, and in doing so then we need to take care of that grounding error, or do we leave them in and just sort out the wiring to make sure that we get rid of that buzz. I guess one of the decisions will be made for me by checking the output from these things at some point, not just yet. Okay, so we're back to not knowing how this looks, but be tolerant, and we'll don't switch off just yet, because we'll carry on and set this up for the fret leveling work while we're at it. And in doing so, and then when we've done it, we can just put it off to one side and come back. But yeah, so the process here is to, this is a tricky one for me, because I was going to say the process is to mask off the guitar neck, and I'm sort of hesitant a little bit about this, because I've got a supplier, recently changed supplier down in the market of masking tape, and it seems, well, this one's got a spot of glue on it on the side, which makes it impossible to get a clean strip off it. But yeah, in changing the supplier, what seems to have happened is they've got to do this, or else I might as well chuck the whole thing away. They seem to have, I don't know, got a different brand of glue on it, and a couple of guitars, it's been a bit of a pain in the backside to get off. It's doable, but it just takes a bit longer work. So, okay, given that we've got a narrow field of vision, here's what we're doing. Gonna leave that out until we're absolutely desperate, I'm afraid, because that is too annoying. Yes, what we're going to do is we're going to take good old cheap masking tape, and I'm going to mask off the fretboard. fingerboard, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do that very, very carefully with the masking tape butting right up to the bottom of the frets. And you can see I'm doing it with quite a bit of leftover tape dangling off the edges, because we want to wrap that around the back and join it onto itself, so it makes a sort of rip-off tab. And this is going to be a bit long-winded, but you've got to take your time to make sure that this fingerboard, and in this case, because we're going to work on the nut as well, and the nut area of the headstock and this part of the guitar, we're going to make sure all of them are masked off thoroughly so that we won't get any damage to the bodywork. And what's the time? It's 6:30. I need to go in and get something to eat. Yeah, and it takes a little bit of time to do this, especially in a moment, because I'm going to have to start cutting different widths of tape, because I can use a slightly thinner tape actually, but generally speaking I'm going to need to stop and get a chopping board out and cut. I seem to have lost my ability to pull tape off a roll. Yeah, I'm going to cut some different thicknesses, because obviously the frets get closer together, which means I'm going to have to cut lots of little strips to make sure that we can get them into these smaller gaps between the frets. But it's worth taking the time, because if you think about it, the fretboard is the most important, one of the most important parts of your guitar. So you don't want to do any damage in any of these processes that we're about to do. Been interesting. Reloved Guitar's progress at the moment has been very, very successful. I'm really excited and pleased about how well things have been going. By and large, and occasionally there are occasional exceptions, but by and large the vast majority of people who drop in on the Facebook page for Reloved Guitars, or the YouTube channel, which isn't called Reloved Guitars because I didn't really start out thinking I was going to do that. It's there under my name, Sam Deeks, but the vast number of people, vast majority, have been really, really friendly and supportive, and actually very grateful in most cases for me sharing what I've learned, whatever it is that I've learned, and it's really motivating and pleasing, and just once in a very long while get somebody being rude and nasty, but by far the greatest volume have been really supportive, so really appreciate that. And I've said a few times on there, I just think there's no reason why we can't just be positive about what people are interested in. If we share an interest in guitars, then let's celebrate that instead of seeking a sort of battleground to score points or put people down. But like Stephen Fry and his motivation behind QI, apparently it was all about, he was sick and tired of negative game shows where people, or TV programs where people sort of got off on criticising others and feeling holier than thou or smarter than thou. And I really get that, and I kind of like it to be that way as well. But it's been extremely good recently, getting lots of inquiries from people who want guitars doing from long distance. So now starting to take in guitars that have been sent through the courier system, and really pleased that people are finding my videos on YouTube, and after going against doctor's orders by the sounds of it, and watching quite a long chunks of video in one go, it seems, a lot of people seem to then come to a decision that they like the approach I've taken and want me to do something for their guitar. So it's incredible trust that goes into that, which I'm really pleased about. And just as we start this process, we've got Claire. Hello. Do you like my little rig? It's time for grub. It is. It's like it should be on the little kind of wheels come around with me. Wally. Okay. Do you want to call Morris? Gonna put this all on hold now for a bit. Right. Let's go down. Shutting the systems down. I can walk around with this. That's the beauty of this. I'll come back to this job a bit later on, but I'm going to take this and you inside, so that I can check the way the video is looking at the moment, and then come back to it. So I'll leave some of the light on, but that's enough for now. Actually, I'll take that big one off if I can remember where it's plugged in. I think it's that one. No. I think it's that one. Yay. Okay, Morris, let's go out to the cold. Come on then. Go on. Go on. Hey folks, back again. And just going to carry on with the masking tape so that we can protect the fretboard of this lovely Chibson, this Chinese Gibson copy, this counterfeit ethical horror. It's funny that I've seen a few videos online from a guy, I don't know his first name actually, a guy called something Milton, aka the Chinese guitar skeptic, and I watched a few of his videos a while back, and he started out as somebody who was, I think, kind of anti Chinese copies, and I think it kind of progressed to a point where he bought a few just to see how bad they were, and actually found that he quite liked them, and then started getting quite a following from people who ended up asking him, you know, all kinds of things about who to buy from in the various kind of, I don't know what you call them, the sort of global marketplace things that you can find online. There's one called Alibaba and things like that, where you can buy from. Well, it's a quite a thriving marketplace for loads of Chinese manufacturers, all sort of vying to get people interested in top quality electric guitars and so on and so on. And so this guy bought quite a few, and liked, you know, he had a very nice style, has a very nice style, and you know, is a very generous producer of videos, and created a lot of really useful stuff for other people to help them set up their guitars and do various stuff. And I think there came a point where he got sort of dragged into, understandably dragged into the moral, ethical kind of quagmire that exists. Oh damn, sorry, phone noises. You know, to the point where I think he had to, for legal reasons and ethical reasons, he had to stop and really reconsider whether he was going to carry on importing these Chibsons, as they call them. And eventually, I think his conclusion was that he decided that he was going to, instead of buying those in and kind of contributing to the crime, he decided he was going to use the same manufacturers and use his knowledge to build a guitar of his own design, and that's pretty much where he is right now. So it's quite interesting. Hopefully it kind of works out for him. But yeah, he was a good source of information on these Chibsons. But I think one of the things he found that it was very much hit and miss, which is why so many people wanted his latest, most detailed advice about where to buy from and which contacts to use. And I think he found that mostly that the Chinese guitars came, they looked pretty good, but they came with all manner of substandard components, and so where you could save money, or where the manufacturers could save money, but also and not just saving money, but where it was clear they had no experience. They just made things that looked like Gibsons but didn't really sound like them because the pickups were inferior and usually microphonic, so they made lots of noise. And so that there was often a case that you had to do more work to make these guitars play, and I guess that's where we are right now in this video. We're going to end up in a minute seeing just how much of this guitar is, how much of the fretboard is unacceptably uneven, and therefore, you know, how long it's going to take in doing the fret leveling, and ultimately whether, you know, it's a nice structural thing that it's too nice to chuck away. Sorry, Jay, I wouldn't do that anyway, but you know, it's certainly nice enough to keep. It's a nice looking thing, and if it's nice looking and you're going to use it, or you're planning to keep it, then in a way you might as well put some decent pickups in it, because if you're going to keep it and use it, it's good, it might as well sound reasonable. So, but I think one of the things that the whole of the Chibson kind of episode goes to show is that eventually your Chinese manufacturers, if they want to, you know, they are capable of getting it right, and getting the quality right to the point where it really does start to starts to beg the question of the Gibsons. You know, are they really £1,000 better than this, you know, $200 Chinese version? And what, you know, where is the better to be found? Where is that quality? How is it expressed? Not saying they're nowhere near as good as the pickups and, you know, the build quality and so on, but you know, the closer they get, the more that question becomes relevant, I suppose. And Jay was saying the other day that one of the things that he really, having had expensive Gibsons, one of the things he really likes is the fact that this guitar now, people still like the look of it and want to get their hands on it. And now, unlike the real Gibson, he's quite comfortable letting them have a go, which is a sort of kind of amusing side effect of having a fake one. That you're actually no longer terrified to leave it in the car, or no longer terrified to let somebody at a pub have a feel of it or a play of it or whatever. So I'm not sure I'd want a guitar that's so expensive that I have to be worrying about it all the time. That's why I like my sort of £30 reloved guitars a lot of the time, because it's no worry. Anyway, so here we are doing the fretboard masking. You can see it's a bit fiddly. I checked the video earlier, by the way, and it's an improvement with this slightly wider angle. I mean, it's hardly noticeable, but it is enough that it just improves the way the camera handles the lighting a bit. And I have to say, Dave, if you're watching this, I haven't yet fiddled with the settings, exposure settings inside the GoPro, and I will do. I'll just do a bit more of this filming, and then I'm going to have a look and see if there are any settings that I can change on that. But meantime, I think it's improved a little bit. I've also got another set of LED lights, a kind of couple of strip lights up here, making the whole place a little bit brighter than before, but I think it's still quite difficult for the camera's electronics, which try and compensate and try and render everything the same, which that's not very good. Not a very level straight line there, Sam. Yeah, given that when you've got so much variation in light in a single place, that's quite a difficult task for a little miniature bit of electronics, I think. Don't know if you can hear the bells of our village ringing out there. Oh, I'm not cutting these straight lines very well at all. The problem I've got here is that the masking tape strips I've cut are a little bit too thick to fit into this last fret. I'll just about get it there. So I've just been out on a cardboard fetching mission. I have a relationship with the local bike shop, usually. I go there every week and pick up some pretty sturdy boxes, and so for me, I'm able to double box all my guitars that I send by courier, with that stuff, you know, bubble wrappy stuff, you know, whatever we call the thing that pads things out. The guitar shop just ran a bit short of cardboard after Christmas, because it was more of a quiet time straight after Christmas. So I ran a bit short, but I was lucky enough to. The people from the bike shop actually rang me. Lorna, one of the owners, actually rang me and said that somebody had come in and had happened to have bought 10 bikes recently for a holiday cycling holiday venture that they run in Breton, and as a result had this chap not too far from here had 10 of these big doors boxes, and she told him about me, and he'd taken my details and was waiting for me to call. So I went out there today to pick up all those boxes, which is fabulous for me, because I get a couple of weeks of supply of cardboard for dispatching guitars, and it means I can really be liberal in my use of cardboard, so I can really make sure the things are packaged up strongly, which is great. So touch Chinese counterfeit wood. So far everything has arrived intact and in good condition, which is no small measure thanks to the kind people Martin and Lorna at the cycle shop in town. I'm just putting a last few bits of masking tape. A bit fiddly when you go around that selector switch. You get there in the end, and just trying to make sure I've got a bit around there as well, because sometimes the sandpaper can drag as we're doing the frets a bit later on, and we don't want that to happen. So the thing about working on a neck that doesn't come off is most of the time it's no problem. The only time when it's perhaps more or an issue requiring any special tools is when you come to refret, and it can be quite. I've not done it on one of these yet, but it's clear that once you get up to the top end, that's going to be very difficult to. Actually, it's not difficult on one of these. Sorry, it's difficult on an acoustic guitar, but this is still solid, so it's not a problem. But when it's obviously when it is a fixed neck or a glued neck like this, you have to make an effort to protect the finish up here. If the neck was off, of course that would be a bit easier. Now, just going to do a quick double check on this to make sure the neck is straight. Flatten down any bits of paper that are standing up. Yeah, that's pretty good. Often it's a slightly different profile looking down one side to the other, and you know, you have to eventually kind of take a compromise between them all. Okay, so for this job, what I'm going to do is the fret leveling part fret leveling job comes in 3 parts, and the first part is to level the frets, the second part is to re-profile them, and the third part is to polish them so they're smooth again. So we do the fret leveling part 1 with this fret leveling tool here. This one's bought from Crimson Guitars, and we can use that to level all the frets at the same time. Second part is we reshape the frets with this concave fret crowning tool, using it across the fret, or long ways on the fret but across the neck. And then the third part is to use sandpaper or different grades of abrasive paper, which we'll come to do the polishing. And in this case, it's an interesting one. Some people on response to some of my videos have said, you know, why do you do all the frets? And at first it seems like a stupid thing to do, because you know what's true is that taking the fret file to all of these frets, God, you can even hear it here, look. Oh. Taking the fret file across all of them will remove some material from all of them, and that feels quite destructive. And it would be if you only had a problem, let's say, on one particular fret. Then taking the top off everything would seem like, you know, maybe taking a month or two of life off these frets for no good reason, it would seem. But in actual fact, you can guarantee that on this guitar, 60+%, probably 75, I'd guess on this guitar, 75% of frets will be uneven, first of all. So that's 75, that's 3/4 of these frets will be uneven and need some sort of adjustment, which obviously leaves only 1/4 that could be left alone, which is a significant minority. And also then the ones that are level, even the few that are level, also still have imperfections. You know, they're either dirty or they're scratched or slightly worn, and so that the leveling thing will clean all of it up and allow us to take it all back to kind of the same finish to kick off again. So it will feel like there's a uniformity. Now while I'm here looking at these frets, just thinking about the degree of sharpness on the ends of these, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get handy with a little bit of sandpaper just to round off some of those frets right now. I'll just pick a couple of scrappy old bits of 600. It's a bit too soft. I was hoping to find a convenient, it's all 600s for some reason. Yeah, I was just going to do a bit of sandpaper on there to take those down. I'll pull a new piece. While we've got them, we might as well take some of the sharp bits off. We're going to need some of this sandpaper anyway. So just to move this out of the way, to keep it safe for a minute, put it back on its stand. So what I'm going to do is just rip some of these ready for the sanding part of the deal. And we'll need about 4 pieces of each. I'm going to do a little extra bit now. About 4 pieces of each grade when I come to the sanding part, and I'm going to use a 240 grade followed by a 600 or an 800, I can't remember which. So I've got 4 pieces of 240 over there ready, and I'm just going to, I was hoping to find me a 600, but no, I've got loads here. What am I talking about? Yep. So 600 is the other grade I'm going to use. And I have 4 pieces of that. And I've got 2 sheets out at once. What the hell? Let's tear it all up. And keep it off to one side for the next one. So I've got quite a few in the queue. So you go up there. And meanwhile, I'll come back to the guitar with its frets. Now what I'm going to do, just before I do anything, I'm just going to put a line of masking tape just down below the frets on this on the binding here, because I want to soften the frets edges off, but I don't want to scratch the binding at all. And this will just help me avoid doing that. The funny thing about tape is that it never stays straight. It's quite flexible, so you think you've got it. You can just pull a strip and it will follow a straight line, but it doesn't. You have to sort of bend it and steer it where you want it to go. Okay, that's good enough on that side. Sorry about the obstructed view for a minute. Okay, so I'm sort of interested to know what this will ultimately play like, this guitar, especially with maybe a couple of decent humbuckers or half decent humbuckers in it, or maybe not even half decent, but certainly better, because it is a great looking thing. I mean, it's certainly as good looking a copy as I've seen. Okay, so I know that I'm going to work over all of these frets with various levels of paper, so I can afford just to round off these tough bits here, the sharp bits, because I know that I'm going to be dealing with all of these. So I'm just literally going to make sure there is nothing sticking out there. It's going to hurt Jay next time it comes to play this. As I say, there's going to be quite a bit of work done on these as well in a minute. So I'm just going to take off that sharp edge, and the same on this side. We're going to have some fair amount of work cut out for us when it comes to the bridge as well, because that was sharp. That's going to need careful work. Not difficult, just careful so it doesn't look ragged by the time we've finished it. Okay, that's a little bit better. Put that off to one side. So here's here we go. If you were doing this to your guitar, you wouldn't have to do this next little bit, but I'm doing it because it's kind of general interest for me, because I like to keep a track of what I'm finding with these guitars. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check for the levelness of these frets, and to do that I use the fret rocker with a straight metal edge, or a piece of metal with a straight edge, and the idea is I put it across 3 frets and try and rock either side of the one in the middle. And if I can rock either side of the one in the middle, I'm going to get kind of mark a pencil or something, and I'm just going to very lightly, just going to make a mark on the masking tape and move on. Okay, this is quite significantly uneven, particularly at one end, so I'm going to mark heavier there, so I know. I expect that to be a problem when it comes. Well, I expect that to require more levelling when it comes to using the fret levelling file. So the reason that this rocker, this old rocker, has different length sides is because obviously the frets come together closer as we go up. So then I can switch over to a shorter side where appropriate. So this is quite significantly out at the top end here, so I'm going to again make a heavy mark so I can see, or I can just have some idea of how far out it is. And it gives me some idea too about from where and to where. But yes, anyway, I just didn't realise that I was telling you something and forgot. I kind of got sidetracked. Where I was just before I came back to do this was out in the countryside picking up boxes from an old chap who had lots of, whose son had got lots of cardboard, and it was very sweet, and he invited me in for a cup of tea, and we had a nice old chat. And the nice thing about kind of networking like that, I suppose you could call it, is that he was very interested in what I'm doing with reloved guitars, and it just came out in conversation that the same son who bought the bikes for his cycling holiday business is also a guitarist, has several guitars, just bought another one, and his children are also guitarists. So there's a lot of value in getting out, meeting people, and then I left my phone number and sort of pointer to the Reloved Guitars Facebook page. So you never know, you constantly meet people, you never know who plays or who knows somebody that does. So I'm finding a lot of quite severely uneven frets here on this guitar, all the way through. So it's probably more than the 60–70%. So we get to a point now where I have to go to the shortest length. And then we can't do the first or the last one. It's always the way, because there's nothing to rock. In a way that if you're using the fret leveling file like I am here, it's not really a problem, because you do everything, all the frets are taken care of with that file. So even though we can't measure the first or the last one, we can still take care of it with that file. So yeah, this is almost, well, it's close, it's about 90% I think by the time we're done. And that is a fairly poor condition neck as far as the evenness of the frets is concerned, and so bad that as I said when we started, I could absolutely feel that end fret is well, you can feel it's been hammered in badly. But yeah, all of this has got significant lack of evenness, shall we say. Okay, so out of our 22 frets, we've got two, I'll say out of 20 that we can check, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 out of 20 leaves us with a resounding 90% uneven frets. Ladies and gentlemen, your Chinese Chibson Les Paul fake copy, 90%. That is 18 out of 20 of these frets are very uneven. Yuck. Right, so now let us begin in earnest. So here's what we do. This is imagine you're starting here. So you get your marker pen and you draw black marker across the top of all of these frets. And the purpose of this marker is so that when we start working with the fret leveling file, this marker will tell us where we have and haven't cut the fret. So we can tell if we've missed anything, or equally we can tell where there's a low spot or a high spot. Interestingly, when you're thinking about level frets, you've got to remember that the frets are this issue about checking them for levelness is you're only checking them for relative levelness. So I can say that relative to each other there are 90% of uneven frets. What I can't tell you precisely is which of these is high and which of them are low, because a low fret here could make that look high there. Now I can, having done this loads of times now, about 75, 80 times now, I can pretty much be sure and tell you that all the ones I've marked heavily are all high frets, and we'll see that as we go with the file, because it will take more off than these high spots. But without further ado, let us just dive straight into the business. You get your fret leveling file and you go down the edge of the frets. And you want to maintain a kind of level, steady pressure all the way down, and work your way in towards the center line of the guitar, and then out to the edge closest to me, the near side, we might call it, and just roll it off the end a little bit. So it's interesting. I don't know how well you can see this, but let's see if you can. What we've got is we have a load of, first of all, filings from the frets, okay? So we're taking material off, and we can see that on all the places where I drew heavy lines, it's got quite a wide level spot, which means it's taken a lot off the fret. Interestingly though, there are some frets down here, namely there, there, and a couple here, where I can tell you that's a low spot, which makes the corresponding things on either side seem high. So these marks here aren't, these are an example of an area which aren't actually high, this is low. But the principle is, to make this even, we still have to go down to the lowest common denominator. So if you have a fret that is got a huge trough in it, the challenge you've got is you've still got to balance it out with all the ones around it. So you've still got to go down. Now if it was so deep that you just couldn't go any further, you would have to consider refretting that one fret, or possibly the whole lot if it was that serious a dent. But you know, while there's a trough there, you're always going to get what appears to be a high fret next to it. Now these frets are a good enough condition to allow us to continue, which is, it's kind of scary looking, but it's what we need to do. So I'm just going to go back down the sides, and this time I'm pulling towards me, so I'm making sure I'm covering anything I didn't cover the first time, and I'm trying to maintain a nice level pressure all the way. Right up to the edge, and then off. Okay, so now a quick re-evaluation again, as I can do it one by one. That's good, 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 that's good. That's a little tiny spot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of marking now where I see a bit that hasn't been touched, because that's telling me there's a bit of a flat spot in there still. In fact, these two are both there as well, because they look like they've been hammered in hugely badly, but we'll continue trying to get those. So we're not far off. Again, we have to evaluate as we go and say, right, do we just take these on the chin? They're so minor you probably wouldn't, I mean, you might be able to live with it, it'll certainly be better than it was before. Or do we have a bit of room to continue? I think we've got room to continue. So again, concentrating mostly on this end. So this is your, if you think about it, this is from your 12th fret, around about your 12th, where is the 12th? Somewhere around about there. Your 12th fret onwards is the place with all the biggest and most compressed load of problems. So I'm just going to put some pressure back on. Let's see, have we got? No, we're okay. I'm going to put some pressure back on this end. Try and get these frets down to match all the surrounding ones. It's quite a tricky technique in a way. You've got to start with sort of full amount of pressure to. It's quite easy to sort of put the pressure on as you start going, but these ones at this end have to be kind of worked on from the beginning. Or alternatively, right through to the end. Okay, now this time I'm going to stop, because I think that's about as good as it's going to get without spending forever, and particularly because now the only major problem really, the only problem is left on that one, and that's the last one in the whole set, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so again, for the novice's sort of perspective, that looks quite dramatic. A lot of freshly ground off tops of the frets, but this is the first time in this guitar's history that it's going to have level frets, and you can see that the amount of material that's had to come off shows you just how uneven those frets were, and you were able to play despite that. The thing played, but it played with a certain amount of buzzing and a certain amount of restrictions on the action you could set. Now, here's the next good bit, part 2. We've done the fret leveling. Oh, by the way, before we go any further, if you want to be sure of it, go back to the places where you had problems before, recheck it, and lo and behold, you will find, suddenly, quite rightly, there are no more problems. Go and check particularly the darkest marks that you made, because they were the most severe rocking, and most of the time you'll find it's tiny little bit left there because that was so high. This is it's so tiny it's not worth continuing to work on it. Again, tiny little bit there, could come down a fraction more. In fact, I will on that one. Okay, so it's literally a matter of pow. Take a little bit off there. Okay, almost spot on. Almost spot on. And then again, check the last few. So everything here now has been pretty much put right the way down to the low spot up here, which has a tiny bit of a rock in it still because it's a low spot, and that's where somebody's hammered it really badly. But I'm going to leave that because it's close to the end, and the one next to it is low as well, so they will conspire to make it playable. So having done that, then the next thing is to go back over the tops with the marker pen. And again, the marker pen is going to act as a guide to tell us what's going on, but this time it functions differently. We can't leave the tops of the frets this way, because two main reasons. One is that they're now flat, all of them, and that doesn't take too much imagination to suggest to you that will be rubbish surface to play on. So they don't. Being flat is no good because they're rough. They've got file marks, and the intonation point or the string point, as far as intonation goes, is completely off now, and the intonation will be wrong. So what we need to do is we need to remove that flat top, or let's say reprofile it into a nice curved shape. And the way we do it is with this concave file, and when you put the concave file onto here and use it, it will take away the shoulder of this flat spot and wear it away until the fret underneath fits the rounded contour here. And this is made for different kinds of size of fret, but we've got jumbo frets on here, so I'm going to use the J side of this thing, and all I do, which you can't see very well, what I'm going to do is just go up and down gently, letting the diamond surface of this file do its job. And what I can see is either side of the fret is starting to shine with raw metal. So what it's doing is it's taking away that shoulder, the flat shoulder, and it's bringing it to a rounded shape. And the black marker pen becomes an increasingly thin line. And the idea of this is to stop when you've just got a tiny little thin line of marker pen, and that tells you that you've left the top of the fret at the same height that it originally was, and it also tells you that you're going to leave all of the frets at the same height because you haven't touched the tops of them, but it also tells you that you've rounded off the flat profile, the shoulder of the fret. And so I'm just going to do that now for each one of these. And it's not too much pressure, it's just a matter of letting the diamond do the work, really. These tools are available from a few different places online, but I bought this from StewMac, the American luthier supplies company, and while being quite expensive by all accounts, they also have a great reputation for very, very good customer service, and if things go wrong, they really, by all accounts, they don't quibble, they kind of keep the customer happy. So when I'm spending 60 or 70 pounds on a tool like this, which has done me a great service already over the last 60 or 70 guitars, for that kind of money, I want to be absolutely confident that if something goes wrong, that I've got really good customer service backup and there won't be any hassles. So I'm prepared to pay the extra, and it's for the ease of doing this job, it's totally recommended. As I say, you can buy cheaper variants, but this is a pretty much as good as you can get on this particular job. So this is the StewMac offset diamond or diamond offset fret leveling file. So already we're 4 frets into it, 1/5 of the way in, so roughly 1/6 of the way in, 1/5 and a half of the way in, and we're firing away on part 2 of the job, and soon we'll be ready for the last bit, which is the careful and quite painstaking polishing part. In a way, that's a really satisfying bit, because that's where you get to sort of see the results of what you've done. As I say, the most important thing throughout all this process is, since we levelled the frets in the first part of the process, then of course all the way through from here on we've got to preserve that levelness, otherwise we're defeating the object. So the little black line of pen, marker pen, is our guide to this. As long as we've got that little thin line of pen there, we know that we haven't gone any lower on these frets. We literally haven't touched the top, which means it's the same height as everything else. Okay, so on we go. What I'll do is I'm going to stop this my strange camera setup. I'm going to stop the recording for a minute and just carry on and do this, and then I'll come back to you, show you the sanding part of the process. Hey there, right, so now I've got all of these frets re-profiled. What I've noticed, by the way, is there is a series of frets here which has taken what looks like a bang all the way across there. this guitar's fallen on its face or something, or had something dropped on it. You've got dents which have shown up here, here, and all the way through to here, particularly that last one. Nothing I can do about it. I don't want to go any further down. I think we'll get it up, shined up nicely anyway, and it will play well without worrying. They're only temporary little blips, so they're not like the whole fret's low. We could technically cure it by carrying on leveling even further, or we could replace a certain number of frets, but it's not worth the trouble. It's not going to have that great an effect. Generally speaking, these frets are now level. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with a 240 paper, and the process we've got to do is quite simple. We've got to take the marks left by this very, very powerful file, which go in that direction. We've got to use as much of this 240 as is necessary to remove those scratch marks. Okay, and once we've done that, and only when we've done that, we can move to a finer paper, and then ultimately we can then move to a set of micro mesh papers as well, which go from 1500 right the way through to 12,000, which is practically shining it. And the really tricky bit about this is making sure that we've got rid of these marks here. It can be too tempting to move on too quickly, in which case you'll polish it up with these tiny traces of the scratches made by this file will still be in the metal, and you'll only really notice it at the point where you restring it and play a note and bend a string, and then you'll feel the crunchiness. So we've got to use a good lighting and a good magnifying glass to really be rigorous and make sure that these marks are out before we move on. Okay, so I'm going to do a fairly familiar routine now for me, which will be 2 or 3 of these, or 2 of these papers first, then I'll do a check visually, and then I'll probably do at least another one, and then I'll probably be in the right place to move on to the lighter grade. So that's how it works. And to begin with, I'm going to use my, sounds like Chrissy Hine, going to use my fingers, going to use my fingers to go up and over. Okay, I don't want to put a flat spot, any more of a flat spot on. I want to erase that flat spot. So in a way, the more my fingers can roll up and over the frets, the better, and it will help to smooth it out. It will also, we also have to be careful that we put the same amount of pressure and attention on all of the frets. Because this paper is capable of reducing the height of the fret to a point where you would create more unevenness. So we avoid doing that by making sure that we just concentrate on doing the same amount of treatment to all the frets, none more than any of the others. Now, having said that, I do know that the ones at the end, particularly the close together ones at the body end, do tend to get neglected, so they do need a little bit of extra attention, because what I usually find is that the scratches are left behind here at this end. But anyway, so you can keep on doing this, and in a way the more it clunks like that, the better, because you want to be pressing down-ish whilst going up and down over the frets. And I'm going to do whole sheet of paper this way, and then I'm going to change paper and direction and come the other way. And again, this end also tends to, the extreme end, either end gets left out, so I'm just paying a little bit more attention to this end. You can see also there's a lot of the dust from the abrasive, what do you call it, the paper building up here, so it's a pretty mucky process, and it will start getting all over the place if you're not careful. So I tend to, it's not ideal, but I tend to brush this right down on the floor of the shed, which then I brush that out or vacuum the shed out once in a while. But I would say, a bit like the roads in 19th century Britain, is like get the dust right down low and brush it off there. So that's the first piece, and I'm going to say lower the thing and just brush the dust on the floor. The guitar will get generally dusty at this point, so you don't need to worry about it. Be prepared to give it a good clean off with naphtha at the end. This guitar was pretty clean to begin with, so I didn't do an overall clean to start off. So again, I'm going new sheet of paper, going the other way. Again, paying a bit more attention to those end frets. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the this nut as I'm looking at it, and it's a very nasty looking thing. So I think I'm going to get lined up to knock it off any minute now, because it'll come off with a nice sharp blow. But there's nothing about it that I really want to keep. There's no argument for keeping it. It's the wrong colour. It needs cutting anyway, so it's going to have to be worked on. So it might as well be another one. Okay. So this is two pieces of paper coming to an end. I'm just noticing some paper lifting up there from the masking tape. So if you're doing this and you notice the masking tape lifting at any point, which it almost certainly will, because you're kind of rolling backwards and forwards with the sandpaper, just go in and put some more on it, and maybe a couple of layers even. And I always have some very thin strips or left over from the original masking process. It's good to keep those leftover ones on the board, because then you can just come back, and if you need a very thin one to fill in one of these gaps up here, you can just go straight to that. Okay, so this is the end of two sheets. Now we're going to do the visual check, and there's something I do here which helps it along. I get a piece of, let's say, 2,500 grit, much finer, and I go across the grain on this, and it has the effect of dulling the shine, and it makes it much easier to see the scratches that still remain. Now, when I say scratches, I mean the scratches from the fret leveling file, not from the sandpaper, because we expect those scratches. And this is the point now where I do my little Clouseau bit and get up close and personal. And you've got to be just totally ruthless or rigorous at this point. So I'm just going to raise that up a bit. I'm going to really any flattering way of doing this. So I'm just going to get right up close. And what I'm going to do is, if I see a scratch, I'm just going to mark it. And in doing that, I know at least where there is a problem. It seems really finicky to go back for such tiny little marks. They appear as tiny little potholes at this stage. They're running that way, lengthwise. And they stand out. They just look a little bit darker than everything else, so it's like a tiny pothole, and it seems like a lot of trouble to go to, but it makes such a difference if you take care of them now rather than trying to do it later. So it is as much as simple as doing this process really, really carefully. Listening to Radio 4 talking about ISIS again, or some such. Right, I can see one there. Hard to keep track of where they are sometimes, but it's very few, I'm pleased to say. But I expect to find one or two down this end. It just seems very difficult to get them out. Partly though there's some down this end because there is so much dented fret. The fret's so badly dented down here. So middle, top. There's one there, one there. Okay, so quick check reveals a few. One or two, and it's enough to use at least another one of these things. Now I'm going to dig out the block. I've got a foam block here which I'm going to use, which is shaped with a point on it, and I'm going to use that for these next ones, this next piece of paper. And again, that allows me to kind of ride up and over the top and take care of these frets. Oh, and I've pulled it off there. Hard to hold on to it sometimes. So this is another reason why it's really good to tape over the pickups as well, so you've got free rein without doing any damage. So you can also turn this round a little bit when you wear it out. So it sort of works. You can angle it both ways, because the point works pretty well. I've got quite a few interesting guitars to do over the next few days. And some more coming. I've got a number, 3 or 4 of my own that need doing and selling, and those include there's a Squire Stratocaster, sorry, a Korean Squire Stratocaster. There's a no-named Wilkinson equipped Strat made by a luthier, quote unquote, but a really nice guitar actually, that has a really naff Fender decal on it, which I'm going to take off and replace with something that, I don't know, says maybe Reloved Guitars or something. That's a sort of an ethical decision really, because I don't want to continue that potential fooling somebody. I mean, I'm not fooled, and the seller wasn't claiming for it. Didn't claim that it was a Fender. To their credit, I wouldn't have bought it anyway if I'd have thought that's what they were doing. But they didn't do that, and but I just think I think it's a good idea to remove that possibility that somebody else in the future might sell it as such. Okay, so I've done the 240, and now I can move on to the 600. Okay, so we're at that stage where it's safe to move on, and I'm just going to load up the block and off I go. And this is sort of easier. Don't have to be quite so worried now, because we've got rid of the major scratches, and now we're in a process now of just taking down the level of scratch from to finer and finer grades of paper. Turn it off. Expect to do maybe 2 of these on 600. Right, that's piece 1 gone, and now second piece, and we should be ready to move on to the, what you call them, the micro mesh papers, which speeds up the whole thing quite considerably then. Okay, that's going to do for now. Right, I'm going to move all these bits of sandpaper out of the way to fight another day. Have an increasing rubbish bag over there. Okay, so now we're into the sort of last stretch of this now. I'm going to go with the micro mesh papers, and they're pretty simple to use. This jump is from 6 to 15, so it's quite a big jump, so need to spend a bit extra time on this 15, I'd suggest. So while this 90% of uneven frets is relatively unusual, in that the majority of guitars that I've had through here have about 60 to 75% uneven frets, it's still, you know, in principle, or by and large, it's completely commonplace. But what I see is that all guitars have uneven frets. And some more extreme than others, and some more numerous than others, but they all have them. And the only thing you can really say about it is that the number and severity of the uneven frets is what dictates or puts a limit on what you can do with the action, your playing action. And that's about it, really. That's why we do any of this. And Jay, if you're watching this, that's why you'll notice it takes about an hour and a half, probably minimum an hour and a half to do this job properly. And without it, it'll still play okay, and you like playing your guitar. But this extra work makes it into a a much better instrument and gives you the opportunity to have a much nicer action. Now, you might not necessarily want to turn it into a lightning smooth action or low action, but you certainly have more of an option on it, whereas you didn't before. And it's true to say that most guitars coming out of the factory and the shop, their action is set to a sort of minimum that they can get away with without running into any buzzing or serious choking notes or other problems like that. So, and they set it to what just about works, and off it goes. And then most of the time it'll pass from hand to hand from in the second-hand market, and unless somebody does this to it along the way, then it stays uneven. And having done some fretting myself recently, not worrying but actually refretting a guitar, it's easy to see how imprecise the process is. While very effective, it's also imprecise in that you'll get the frets seated in, they'll be bedded in nicely and they'll stick and be secure, but you will have no fine-tuned control over exactly how high they sit. Broadly speaking, yes, but not down to the level of hundredths or thousandths of an inch or whatever. And the bottom line is that if you just leave it, you will have that unevenness, which is why as soon as I refret a guitar, first thing I will do is level the frets. Not because, as somebody on a video on YouTube the other day said, they commented on a what was it? It was a Charvel San Dimas, and they seemed to be surprised that I'd done fret leveling on it for such a new guitar. And of course, the principle there wasn't that the frets were damaged or worn out that required a fret work. It was because they were uneven. There we go. Right, after all of that hard work, we are now at the stage of having completed, and you can see just how dirty all that work is, but we've completed the fret leveling and polishing. So now comes the fun point of the whole proceedings, is taking it off, taking the tape off. And thankfully it's coming off quite easily. By the way, if it doesn't come off, it's never a major problem. It's just a matter of having to use a bit of lighter fluid and some elbow grease, as they say, to get it off. Just could do without it sticking to the finish, but it doesn't do the finish any harm. It can do. You've got to be very cautious if you're using anything but masking tape on an old guitar with, I don't know, maybe worn out nitrocellulose, very, very old flaking stuff, because masking tape is quite capable of lifting that old lacquer off altogether, and you find yourself having to do some kind of unplanned complete respray and relacquering. So again, this will need an all-over clean because it's picked up dust and stuff, but we've done, in terms of preparing the frets, this is as good as they've ever been. If not as good, it's better than they've ever been, because they've never been levelled in the factory or in the shop. Certainly not on a Chinese counterfeit Gibson. So better than they've ever been, and and certainly the first time they'll ever have had this attention. And off comes all the paper. That's why making those tabs was a good idea, because it helps a lot in this paper removal process. And then we're left with paper to get off the deck here. Again, it's coming off easily, so that's nice. So once we've done this part of the game, what do we need to do next? Well, it's all we can do. There's a nut to do. We can replace the nut, and I think actually we're going to do it with a plastic, cream coloured plastic nut, which quality wise isn't a massive improvement on the existing one, but in terms of aesthetics it's the right colour, much more the right colour for this guitar. So we might as well, since we're in the process of improving it. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to use a bit of naphtha and take away any of the dust that's got onto the body, which it always does. So, and it takes away a bit of that, any of the leftover masking tape glue too. So that is a nice looking set of frets now, all brand new, freshened up. Jay, you won't have seen them looking as nice as this for a long time. I know it's not been played much by the looks of it, so it would look more like this if it was played more often, just by nature of the fact that the strings keep the frets a bit clean in normal use. But okay, let's see if you can see. So there we have it. Lovely done frets, all level. So the beauty of this is no matter what's happening at the bottom, even if there are some imperfections the way these frets are put in, which there certainly are because it's a cheap job, levelling it from the top kind of puts that right. So it says, well, even if the seating of these things isn't great or terribly even, so long as they're firmly in, then what we've done is we've levelled everything from the top, which kind of ignores then the condition of the seating, and all we really care is that they're firmly in place, and that's really what we're looking for. Is anything that's in danger of falling out or loose that we might have to address. But okay, so neck work done. You could restring it at this point and just go with this without doing anything else, but what we're going to do is take out this nut. There it goes. Now with it, nut is always put on with a bit of super glue. It's a very cheap plastic nut. Bit of super glue usually puts the nut in place, so sometimes it's good to just get a file out and just ensure that the base where the nut sits is free of any sticking up super glue. Stop rattling. Thank you. Don't know what it is. It's annoying. Yeah, you can take as long as you like flattening this out, but as long as it's not got any great sort of chunks of super glue sticking up, it'll be fine. You just want a reasonably level surface to go with you to attach your new one. So in this case we would use this plastic one, which again needs a little bit of smoothing off on the bottom, just because it's in fact what I'll do is I'll do that with a piece of sandpaper on a flat surface. Yeah, it's just you just want to make sure that the nut, the new nut that you're putting on, is smooth, flat on the base, just so that it gets as clean a seating as possible. So on the base and on the face that touches the guitar, you want the best possible contact. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, that's pretty tight, and it's the right colour, which is great. So I'd be quite content to just put that one straight in, which I will do with my super glue. can never quite make this give up any super glue. Oh, it is. Bit there, bit there. Hard to gauge that and avoid getting that tiny little stripe of glue sort of coming out the top there. But if you catch it early enough, you can wipe it out. So that's a much better colour. It looks like it's the part. Yes. Okay, we'll leave that to dry in its own time. The fit down at the there's always a little gap there. It's hard to get a replacement to fit the way the original did, but it'll do. It's not perfect. I mean, somebody looking at it go, that's not a Gibson because it doesn't fit 100%. There's no way of pushing it to fit any tighter. Okay, let's put these cloths out of the way. Right, okie dokie. A quick look from the side. Actually, I'm not sure about that. Can really. What am I thinking? No, that's okay. That's okay. Could do with a little bit more taking out. But to be honest, let's have a look. That's livable with. Yeah. Okay, right. Okie dokie. So that's fret leveling stuff away. Files away, super glue away. And where are we now in the process? Well, let's chuck away this horrible white nut. It's good for nothing. We have a couple of possible replacement pickups here, which we will mull over. Put all the fret working stuff away in the toolbox. It's very disciplined of me. Okay, so we're, I guess, kind of nearly done for today's hard work, ladies and gentlemen. Just thinking out loud. Nicely levelled, ready to go. I'm just noticing actually this. You can just feel the edge of the binding there. So we're ready to, if we wanted to, restring, but I'm interested in having a look at the output or the quality of these pickups. So before anything else happens, I just want to have a quick look in here, see what's what. What is what in here? It's all a bit... Okay. Trying to figure out what goes where. It's not a familiar layout. It's slightly different from what I've seen before. I wonder if I can put this on and still wear the microphone. I think I can. How about these glasses? I think I can too. I know, don't laugh at me. I look a bit silly, but all right. There goes a foam block. So, looking in here, we've got, what have we got? We've got, the white one is playing earth here. We've got middle one, which is going out we've got red playing earth and a white going. Okay, so the red and the white are the live from the pickup. So let's have a look on our meter. And I just got a feeling this is going to be really, really, really kind of almost non-existent. So earth down there and 4.82 for a humbucker. That is just lousy. 4.82, and then similar we'll go for the neck one. I think that was, flip it over, that was the bridge. Let's go for the neck one, and the neck one is 4.82 as well. So there you go, folks, you've seen it there. 4.82 resistance. Now you take a pickup like this here, rather badly chopped off thing. Hang on a minute. Okay, let's go for this Wilkinson and do the same comparison. I think you can see it okay. Where's the thing? Okay, Wilkinson gives us, and this is a neck pickup. So the neck pickup on there was 4.82. Neck pickup on this one is, let's get it right, 6.95. So that, let's see what else we've got, just by comparison. So we've got an Epiphone, can't tell which is which, frankly. We've got an Epiphone here, wow, look at that, 15-ish, 15k, whatever it is, 15. So that is way higher output than these babies, and more than this particular Wilkinson. And then I've got another one here which isn't a Wilkinson, but it's, I'm going to just see what it reads at. This is in fact something like, I think it's an Ace Pro actually, from the Ace Pro SG I've got in the house, and I replaced that pickup with a DiMarzio, but we'll see what this Ace Pro rates at. So I think, I mean, I'm not a great expert on pickups by any means, but I think the rule of thumb is that the higher the reading, the more powerful the output of the pickup is, or the hotter it is, if you like. The more resistance there is, so it means the more windings that you've got. So the ones you've got on there at the moment, Jay, are sort of weedy, not much windings. Now this Ace Pro, which I thought was quite good pickup in action, is still only about just 8.9 medium. The Epiphones are the hottest so far, and then up here I have a gold Wilkinson humbucker, and I think this is a bridge one, and I think it's specifically a hot one. So let's just check. Yeah, bridge at about 13. It's not bad. So it's an interesting choice. As I say, I've got a, what would be here, a neck at, a Wilkinson neck at, make it work at all, a Wilkinson neck at 7.16. In fact, I'm going to write that on here. Neck at 7.6k, which is definitely not a hot humbucker. We've got the golden one here, bridge pickup at what was it, 14k. Sorry to faff about a minute, I just want to see what our options are. Okay, 1265-ish. So the bridge, gold bridge one at 12.65k, which is quite warm. And then we've got this, which is actually, this is also a neck pickup. Well, we've got an interesting pair here, Jay. We've got a gold at 12 for the bridge, and we've got a quieter neck, a cooler neck at 7.6, which could make a nice pairing. It'd look a bit odd, but it won't look like a Gibson. It won't look like an original Gibson Les Paul, unfortunately. So, alternatively, I suppose those don't go under any cover either, do they? Yeah. And then we'll just go back and just double check to make absolutely sure that the rating on the existing ones in here are 4.82 and 4.82, exactly the same. 4.82, and that's worse than any of them. So that is, just check, that's a neck pickup, and it's a Ace Pro, and its rating is, or its resistance I should say, is 9.23, 9.22, 9.22. Okay, so what we've got is two necks. One, the Wilkinson is actually cooler than the Ace Pro, and we've got a bridge, a Wilkinson bridge at 12.65 in gold, which doesn't really match this guitar at all. And then we've got some Epiphone humbuckers, a pair, a matching pair, which we could use, but it would render this not looking much like an original Gibson Les Paul. But you could have those, and then the alternative is we could go for a set of unbranded silver generic-y pickups that would probably preserve the look of the fake Gibson a bit better. Of course, I can't get this to stand on here. It doesn't want to do it because of the magnetism. I'm just trying to get a sort of visual, a quick photo. Stay there, thank you. And then I can let Jay have a look as an option. You can have those for free. Right, okay, well, with this in mind, I think it's probably a good place to stop and stop dazzling you as well with this silly light. So there you go, folks. The first sort of foray into this very pretty Chinese Chibson, not a Gibson at all, and you can see certain areas where it really shows up in its lack of quality, like the machine heads here, like in the fact that even here, look, there's no piece of wood there for the screw to go in. Terribly uneven frets, but now sorted, and lousy low output humbuckers, which we have a range of options to replace it with, or could suggest to Jay getting a decent set without any markings on, so that they look the part for this guitar. And I think actually it's probably worth him doing, but I think you'll be looking at £20–30 in that whole thing. But anyway, it's great to have the choice, so thank you very much for spending all of this time with me. If that's you, Jay, I hope you enjoyed it. If it's anyone else, oh, just breaking my aerials. If it's anyone else, I hope you enjoyed hanging out in the old Relove Guitars workshop for a while. I'm going to hang up this for the day, and look forward to catching you in the next installment, and probably when I've checked with Jay about the pickup options, we'll see what happens. All right.